What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over my final 8 predictions for Hogwarts Legacy. Thought I would choose a different number than maybe something else you would see on YouTube, but let's get right into it. These are going to kind of be a mix of maybe some bold choices, bold predictions, along with maybe not so much, and we'll see how many I get right by the end of the game. And the first one is going to be the origin of your character. So my prediction, pretty simple. I'm not going to cover every single aspect of it, but I'm going to predict that you never had powers until you did. Something kind of like a ripple thing throughout the wizarding world, and it affects you. Now, this is, of course, the opposite could happen where you always had something within you, right? Your parents hid it from you, the world hid it from you, all this kind of stuff, like a Harry Potter kind of thing, right? So I'm going to kind of go with the opposite of it and say, literally, you were a muggle, you had you had nothing. You literally were just a normal person until all of a sudden you weren't. That is going to be my first prediction. Second prediction is this game does, in fact, take place in 1890. Now, you could say, well, Alex, that's a ridiculous prediction because this one seems the most, plausible. Or even you could say it's kind of been confirmed. I think so. I think there's been more debate, though, in the Hogwarts Legacy community that it's quite possible that newspaper that's handed to you and Fig in the carriage. So when we all saw this, I think we all assumed, oh, well, this paper, the paper that's handed, was published that day. Like, they're talking, and then you get the newspaper, and it's like, hey, look what just happened in the mail, today. Look what's going on in world politics. And I think that's what a lot of us assumed. Now, the Chudley Cannons poster, and just the general idea that it doesn't have to be in 1890 has always kind of been there. Now, I do think it is a very safe bet. You only, in my opinion, have 3 years to work with, and that's 1890, 1891, and 1892. 1890 obviously makes the most sense because of the newspaper. 1892 makes the least sense to me only because of Albus Dumbledore, right? You can maybe make the argument because of the Chudley Cannons poster, but because of Dumbledore starting school that year, and this game literally being a very selfish game in a right way, being literally just about you, right? They've said that multiple times. This game is your game. It's not Albus Dumbledore's game. He's not going to because if you put him in the game, he's going to kind of one-up you just for the fact that he's in the game. I think he would take a lot of eyes off of you as the main character. And I think because of that goes so against everything that they've said that they want this game to be. So I guess in that way, I'd even throw that year completely out. 1890, 1891 at this point. So either you're being shown a newspaper that's a year old, because it's September 1st, I believe, 1890, which is, when you go back to Hogwarts. So again, it makes a lot of sense that you're literally on your way to Hogwarts for the first day of school. You're handed a newspaper of that literal day, like the morning of. I think that makes the most sense. Number 3 is that Rookwood and Ranrock are the only main villains in this game. I want to make sure main, right? Because I do think like the Poacher group, and I think there's kind of enough evidence, the Poacher group is like a faction. They may have a leader. I wouldn't be shocked at all. And also you think from like a game perspective, you're probably going to have other bosses. And it's not even a for sure thing you would fight Rookwood and Ranrock kind of 1v1 to be like a duel. It could happen, but you'd imagine that you're going to have more than just those two. So when it comes down to who's running the show, who's the true villains of this game, I know there was always the theory maybe there could be a third one. In fact, I had kind of run with that theory for a long time. Maybe there's a third villain kind of above them. I wouldn't be surprised if a villain was teased for like a future game, that there is something more menacing out there in the world, and these two, aren't that bad. They're bad in the moment, but they're not that bad compared to this other guy. I think that's possible, but I think in terms of, again, who's running the show, who's the two villains in this video game, it is Ranrock and Rookwood. And so that goes right into prediction number 4. I'm going to predict that Rookwood is going to turn on Ranrock. Now, it could go either way, and I'm honestly up for either of them. I saw a lot of people saying, well, what if Rookwood actually would become the main villain? Because I think if you were to organize these two, Ranrock is like a 1A, and then Rookwood's a 1B. I don't know if I would say they're like 1-2. Like one is clearly a lackey. Kinda, but I honestly think they're going for literally a 1A, 1B, where they're, the A is bigger and more menacing or whatever. They are kind of driving it, but the B is pretty important, and you can maybe even argue just as important, right? That's what I think they're going for. So with that being said, are there going to be some disagreements? Well, we've already seen a scene where they don't seem to be getting along, right, in that first state of play. So what if by the end of the game, that's why I said there's no guarantee you'll fight Rookwood and Ranrock 1v1. It's possible. Maybe you fight Rookwood 1v1, you don't kill him, nothing happens, but he actually turns on Ranrock, and maybe he's part of the reason why Ranrock can be defeated at the end of the game. So that I would say is pretty bold, but I'm going to go for that one, that Rookwood is going to turn on him, and maybe that would even lead to his demise. Prediction number 5. This is probably the biggest one, right? This is the make or break. The game will take place over one school year. That's going to be my prediction. Not 3, not years 5, 6, 7, not years 5, 6, just 1, years 5. And for Hogwarts Legacy 2, you will return to the school as a 6th year. That's going to be, and for a long time, I had actually said I wouldn't mind it. And in fact, I thought my prediction, I guess, for a long time would have been you actually leave school no matter what. I think you could leave school. I think at the end of the 5th year, if something so horrible happened, kind of like at the end of 6, right? Like they don't go, the main 3, obviously everybody else kind of goes back to school, but you kind of leave. They left, right? So I think you could do something similar where it's so bad at the end of 5. You're so powerful. It's kind of like a danger. Things are happening in the wizarding world. You got to leave school to kind of sort this stuff out. So you won't. I do think that's possible. I like the idea. It is very Harry Potter-like, but I do think that's a possibility. So I'll go against my kind of gut reaction, because that is actually what my gut wants to say. You will return to Hogwarts for your 6th year, and it will be a trilogy. Hogwarts Legacy is your 5th year. Hogwarts Legacy 2, 6th year. Hogwarts Legacy 3, 7th year. Maybe you have like subtitles underneath the names as well. Number 6, no Ravenclaw companion. Let's lock that sucker in. Now, let me make it very clear, because people, for some god unknown reason, always get mad when this topic is brought up, at least when I bring this topic up, so maybe it's a me problem. So I'll try to explain this as carefully and choosing my words as best as I can. I don't think there's going to be a Ravenclaw companion in the same way that we have the 3 others. So Sebastian, Poppy, and Natsai. I don't think there will be a 1-to-1 comparable for Ravenclaw. There are Ravenclaw students. There are students in all the houses. There's people you'll talk to, friends, or whatever you want to call them, right? Whatever you want to put into quotes. There's those people in all the houses, even the ones that we already have the companions. But I'm literally saying these companion quests, when you're going to go on these long storylines with these 3 characters, and they'll also make their way into the main story, right? There won't be that for Ravenclaw. Now, that's not a statement. That's a prediction. I don't think there'll be a Ravenclaw student that you go on like say a 5 quest line with that you do for Poppy and Knots, and these are, again, all predictions. I don't think there'll be that. I think there'll be Ravenclaw students that you'll talk to, maybe do some fetch quests for. They'll make their way in the main story, but I don't think there'll be a comparable to the other 3. And whether or not you want to make that be called a companion or not, that's totally up to you. I've said my piece on it. Number 7 is a Merlin one. So this is kind of vague, and maybe I can explain a little bit more as we go on. I'm going to say Merlin's going to be important to the story, but not that important. So, I mean, James of Expecto Go has really done pretty much all the heavy work for, like, everybody on the Merlin stuff. I guess what I'm saying here is he's not going to be as integral to the story as maybe you think it is. And, again, just a prediction. I imagine the ancient magic and all that stuff, that could very, very well tie back to Merlin. So I guess it's just up to you to decide, like, how integral is integral, right? Like, if ancient magic is tied back to Merlin, but you know, you don't go back in time, you don't see him, you don't talk to him, he doesn't kind of make his way in. Nobody from the past is like a secret villain that comes back, right? Like, none of that stuff. But the ancient magic is tied to Merlin. That's kind of what I mean, right? Because he's important. He's everywhere. There's all these puzzles and stuff. Like, he's definitely, like, his presence is felt throughout Hogwarts. But he's not going to be like some super, super integral part to the main story. And my last prediction is I'm going to predict there's going to be 2 major deaths, at least 2, by the end of the game. So this is kind of going down the Battle for Hogwarts kind of road, whether it's a legitimate, like, Deathly Hallows Part 2, you know, Battle for Hogwarts, or Deathly Hallows for the book, right? Whether it's like a literal huge war at the school or if it's something else, I will predict whether it be students or teacher. Now, I've said this before. I think the teachers have a higher likelihood of dying versus a student. So I'm not sold on one of your companions, say, dying. Like if a Sebastian died. Now, it's possible, and I think that would be pretty powerful, but I'm not sold on it. I think and that's why I say 2 major deaths. Doesn't really matter who. I would say I wouldn't include Rookwood or Ranrock. I don't even know if they would die. Maybe one of them, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm talking about like the good guys. So maybe like a Professor Fig. Maybe, some sort of professor just throughout the game. That's kind of what I'm talking about. So I'll say 2 of them in all. And there you go. There's my 8. I'm sure I could come up with more. Maybe we can talk about it in like future live streams or something. But let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I'll see you all on the next one.